Hello everybody and welcome back to another one of those videos where I talk about updates in the Steam version of Dwarf Fortress coming from Toady1 and KitFox. It's that time again and Tarn Adams has uploaded a annual, well I guess not annual, like quarterly update video. This one is for summer, so there isn't a lot of new stuff in here. However, there is a lot of stuff that we've seen previously in action and heavily explained. So I will jump through and give thoughts and comments throughout, and if you hear meowing, it's because I am cat sitting currently. Let's get into it.
Okay, so welcome back to Dwarf Fortress. Here we are looking at a fort in the autumn as some traders have arrived. Let's see, what do we got? Not a damaged tunic. So normally you put things in bins. So let's look at our bins. We have a whole lot of bins here. We can sort them by value or just kind of poke around inside of them. Here's a bin with all kinds of good stuff in it. I did a search filter for rings to kind of find the ones that have goods inside of them. Well, that's gonna be a problem. It's not the broker. They're off drinking. Well, it can't be helped. This is part of Fortress life. They just had a little bit of a craving there, but we've got all season to trade with these dwarves.
All right, I'm going to pause Tarn for a second here and just state that this is our first overview of the actual trading screen in action. Now, I don't really have too much more to say here aside from the fact that if you do want to watch the full version of this video, the link is down in the description as well as in the pinned comment. But as I'm here now, what I will say is that I believe that this screen, while virtually identical to the one in the current version of the game, the current classic release, I do believe that this version of this UI is a very nicely cleaned up version of that. Like, frankly, with the ability to change all of the fonts around and the ability to change all the colors, I do really think that this is a massive improvement on the current in-game screen. Just the ability to be able to collapse all the different sections and sort by bins and all of the different search values and options. Like, Tarn does a full nice overview of it here, but I really, really like this trade screen. This is one of my favorite new additions that we've seen in recent updates, and let's move on to the next little bit. Let Tarn talk.
You get the you kind of stack the positions because you don't have that many dwarves in the beginning, and then it just kind of sticks if you don't change it. So now we're trading. We've got our trader up in the top left. They seem willing to trade. We know that because our broker has some skill in negotiation and empathy, kind of reading people. Judging intent, I think, is the skill name. So we've got all our stuff. We've got plenty of money. Can't really buy out the whole caravan here, but let's say we want to get all of the booze. You could do a search for something like wine, and now we've got all of the barrels showing here. Just kind of gives you the category here that contains wine. And there's a dwarven wine barrel, for instance, there. It didn't narrow it down more, I think, because of how the filters currently work, but we can just buy out this whole section anyway. And with one of those bins we brought over, the trader makes a healthy profit there. It's in green at the bottom, so you know it's just going to go right through. Now, if I want to get all of these gems, too, now the profit's yellow, that means that the trader's negotiation skill is going to come into play, and we failed. So they want an extra crown worth $800. Shoots the profit way back up into the green, but because we were haggling, we kind of have to eat it. But now the trader's happy, and we could continue trading and maybe try and cut it a little close again. See what we can do. So with the new unit screen here, this is the new unit screen with all of the units here. We have some of the colors on the left. We're going to work on those. I know they don't go well with the new gray background, especially it's worse. So there's a little child playing with a rubber puzzle box. It was a grown rubber puzzle box. It was made by the elves. Okay, so we can sort by stress. There's a woodcutter, the only person who's really stressed out in the fortress. So now we can just teleport to them. This is way easier than it used to be in kind of the old vanilla Dwarf Fortress.
So here Tarn is talking about a stressed dwarf, a dwarf that has had a rough time of things, a dwarf that is not so happy. Now, something that I really like about the way that this Dwarven Mines screen looks is it shows and surfaces all of the important information without just diluting it down to a statistic. One of my main issues with the way Dwarf Therapist does this specifically is it just gives you the raw numbers. It's like, well, this percentage of stress is on this dwarf, or this number of stress points are on this dwarf, and if a dwarf hits this number of stress points, I will just expel them with no questions asked. To me, I think a lot of the fun of Dwarf Fortress is kind of screwing up a little bit and then having to rehabilitate your dwarves, because if you've never played Dwarf Fortress before, like, stress piles up and has to be corrected for. And this can mean that, a dwarf could spend multiple years developing like high levels of PTSD and nightmares and horrible other destructive tendencies, and then over time, slowly grind that back to become a sane person again. Like, this shows their unmet needs very bluntly. It shows the squad that they're in. It shows what they're currently carrying, their skills, whether or not they're stressed, obviously, in that one screen. And I think that it's really neat that there is... like, it's all spaced out instead of having to look at the big old wall of text from previously. Admittedly, I kind of like the big old wall of text because I think it's kind of fun just having like this massive paragraph of text that just fills up the entire screen, which is essentially the dwarves stat sheet. But, we can't have everything, right? So here it is, and I quite like the way this whole thing is presented.
She has 2 lovers, 2 children. Could potentially be the source of the trouble, but not really. They tend to get along in the game. But we've got worried about lack of decent meals, unable to make merry. So they just kind of want to hang out and relax. And they've been out here in the rain cutting down wood. And so this dwarf probably just needs a break, let him have some time in the tavern, and probably get him back on the road to recovery. The work order system. There's already a couple work orders set up to brew plants and things. I'm going to make a new one. So I can make a jeweler work order, but I have to go back and look at the rough stockpile to see what we actually have. So let's just make a nice one for say, some carpentry. Let's do wooden chairs. And so here we are. Now that's all. Just click. You have a 10 wooden chair order. You can change the numbers, plus and minus, or if you want, you just click type. So you make 15 chairs, say. You can change priorities of the orders. Just click them around a little bit. So now the wooden chairs, the new order is the highest priority order.
So this is Tarn kind of going over the manager screen. Now, this is a screen that I think is kind of interesting because it is quite literally identical to the current in-game version. The only difference is the hotkeys have been moved to alongside of each icon on the list, and there is now recommended conditions. I'm really curious to know what you guys think about this, because this was kind of what I was hoping Tarn would do with the majority of the UI, keep things mostly the same and add a few tweaks to make things a little bit more accessible. Granted, they've gone with this full UI overhaul instead of kind of a more simplistic approach that I was expecting initially. But I'm really curious to know what you guys think of the workaround with this screen, especially now with the full explanation of how it all works and what all the buttons mean.
You can set conditions on them. This is a kind of powerful system, but we've made it a lot easier now. There's suggested conditions down at the bottom. You used to just kind of have to manually build these things or know like which arcane buttons to press to make the right stuff pop up. But now you can just say, well, if I've got less chairs, thrones is the general category. If you've got fewer than 10 chairs and kind of more than 10 logs, then go ahead with this order. You could try and make them into wooden thrones. This is the kind of stuff that's still pretty arcane. I'll probably work on this a little bit. We have like specific woods you could do it. I accidentally made it all of wood here. Let me clean this up. So now you can look at these adjective lists. There's all kinds of things like cookable items and tin-bearing items for certain kinds of ores and things. It's just, it's pretty complex. It's kind of hard to find wood. I think you'd pick like plant items. So I'll make it a little clearer as we go. But this is the kind of system to set up these conditions on work orders. You don't need to mess with this stuff, though. The suggested conditions are more than sufficient for pretty much everything you'll need to do to set up work orders. So you can go back and you can try and just type in. You can change these numbers as well. Now, one other thing you can do is set up orders to depend on other orders. Like, say if we wanted the barrels to be done after we do the chairs that we just ordered, we can just say condition the barrels on the chairs. So there we have, have to do the 15 chairs first, and then you'll get the barrels afterward. So you can set up whole things. You can set them to not be one-time orders. You can set the frequency. You can make them depend on items and orders at the same time. There's a lot of power here if you want to use it, and if you don't want to use it, You could just set up, say, the brew job, so you've always got alcohol in the fortress, and the dwarves are happy and never look at this thing again. But it's a pretty cool system. And
And of course, as always, if you haven't seen it yet, you can watch the full video down below. Large portions of it are in here as well, so you kind of got the gist. But there are a few tidbits that I did leave out just to have some unique things for KitFox to show on their channel. But seriously, thank you very much to KitFox for allowing me to do this with these videos, because I'm kind of happy that they don't yell at me for re-editing them and talking over them. And to anybody who watched this video, please, once again, go watch the official KitFox video and give them the stats as well. And if you're on my channel and you're here for the first time, thank you very much for checking it out. And if you've been here for a bit, thank you very much for supporting these videos. I try and get new videos up as soon as news comes out about the Steam version of Dwarf Fortress from Toady1 and KitFox, and various other places on forums and subreddits when they pop up and make themselves known. And of course, if you check out the YouTube channel, there's more Dwarf Fortress stuff than you could reasonably watch in a lifetime. And I stream on Twitch 5 days a week. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.